All right, so our first question is a great question and one that I think could help a lot of married couples. And so here's the question that was sent in. If you're the spouse with the lower sex drive, how can you initiate sex so it's not the one spouse always initiating? We want to avoid a sexless marriage, which is a great question here. And we do know that sex is not everything in a marriage. So, but it can be a huge problem, as we talked about, and it can be a great thing to bring connection together in a lot of different ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually. There's so much to it. And one of the things that I think that we were ignorant of as we got into marriage and into our sexual relationship was that our sex drive and everything would just always be the same.
We thought we both want sex an equal amount of time all the time.
Which it's just not the case. There are so many factors that go into it with seasons of life and what's going on. So, your sex drive, it's up and down all the time.
So is yours.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's through the roof. Sometimes it's like zero. Just based upon what's going on in life, season of life. There's so many different factors with stress and other things on your body, hormones and all these different things that happen. For me, there's times of depression where my sex drive is low. So there's just so many factors. So I think the first thing I would tell this person here, because you want to be careful how you approach the conversation. And we talk about this all the time. Whatever you're going to be talking about, you want to have the conversation in the right way. So the first thing I would do is say, hey, sweetie, I found this podcast, and let's just check it out together. I don't know. Let's pick an episode. What about episode 141? Let's see what that's about. And that's a great way to start the conversation. But honestly, it's sharing your heart. Hey, listen, you're the one who feels like you're initiating all the time. And I don't care who you are, man, woman, or whatever. You don't want to be the only one initiating all the time.
Yeah. And I came into our marriage with an incorrect perception of this. I thought it was like, just like in dating or anything else, I thought that the man was supposed to be the only pursuer. And so I really thought like Thomas should constantly be the one to pursue me, even sexually. And that can cause a lot of problems too, because, how does that feel for someone, for you? Like if I never initiate or I never pursue you sexually, even though you're a confident man.
Well, the thing is, if you really love somebody, and if you're married, I would hope that you would say you love the person that you're married to. If not, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But if you really love the person you're married to, right, you don't want to be, if it just feels like they never want to have sex, you don't want, it's uncomfortable to be bringing it up all the time. Like, I don't want to force this person into something that's so private and intimate if they don't want to be involved in it. You know what I mean? And not only that, like, we as men, we want our wives to desire us sexually. We want that. Like I go to the gym, right? And I come home, especially after I had the gym. Like, just coming home from the gym, you've got the pump on. I come home, and the shirt comes off pretty quickly. Like, I just want to parade around in front of my wife. Like,
you're peacocking.
Yeah, exactly. I want my wife to desire me.
Yeah,
right.
And I'm always like, oh, look at those muscles. Actually, sometimes I'll be like, I thought you went to the gym today.
Yeah, she
Why
really
don't I
shoots
see any
me down
difference?
there. She knows what I'm up to, and she clips those feathers.
But I'm teasing, and you know that.
But even as a man, like, what we do often is about showing off to our wives. So even men want their wives to desire them. And maybe it's the other way around. And there'll be seasons of life where it's like that, because there have been times where Lysandra has been the one initiating.
Yep, I think of pregnancies, and I also think of your season of deeper depression. Those are both times when my sex drive was higher than yours.
But the biggest thing is just having a conversation about it. Sitting down saying, hey, I feel like I'm the one who always is initiating sex. What's going on in your life? Because honestly, for most of you out there, it's not about you. It feels like it's about you.
It does.
When somebody is not initiating, it feels like it's about you. But most of the time, it really has nothing to do with you. Your spouse wants to have sex with you, enjoys it, all those sorts of things. It's about what other things, other factors that are happening in life.
That's right. So what if you are the person who needs to work on initiating sex? If you're the person with the lower sex drive, one thing that you can do is initiate purposefully and intentionally soon after you've already had sex. So maybe it's a couple of times a month. You're going to initiate sex the day after, or maybe 2 days after you've had sex. So that way you're taking a turn initiating before your spouse can again return to you. And you're showing interest in your spouse physically. So just do that sometimes intentionally.
Well, and I would say this. If you've just had this conversation, then you have to be totally open to whatever your spouse initiates next. Because we've had these discussions, and there's been times where Lysandra has come to me and upset because she does not feel beautiful and whatever else and desirable because it's been a season where my sex drive has been lower, and she's had these conversations with me. And when you have that person having that conversation with you, it feels like a no-win scenario. Mm-hmm. Because now if I initiate, you're going to think I'm only doing it to get you to be quiet about this conversation.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way.
Which is not the case, because we want to be involved in it. And so there were times where Lysandra was literally like, you're only doing this because of what I said the other day.
Right. And so then you really can't win.
And honestly, it's part of it was, but it was because it was brought to the forefront of my mind. It wasn't that I was doing it to, like,
shut me up.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice, but it wasn't that I was doing it for that reason, but it was brought to the forefront. It was made very clear to me how much this was affecting you in your personal life. And so I wanted to make sure that I was doing what I was needing, what was needed to be done when it was needed to be done.
You are really tiptoeing around here.
And well, because we want to keep our G rating, right? And so obviously it's a sensitive topic, but just be mindful of that as you have the conversation and this person approaches you. Be nice to them.
Yes.
Don't throw it in their face.
Right. And another thing that you can do to help this is really seek to understand why you have little interest in sex. Seek to understand why your spouse has such a higher sex drive than you do. A lot of communication should go into sex, and many factors, really come into play with a sex drive. So, it just makes it easier to cope with the other person's sex drive if you've had discussions about it and you understand what's going on emotionally. And remember that having sex with your spouse is a way to meet their physical needs. It's a way to show love, and we all should be meeting our spouse's needs a high priority. And I think about 1 Corinthians 7:3 that says the husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. Like, we are supposed to meet this need in our spouse. So you got to talk about it and then figure out how can we each meet the other's need, even though our sex drives are not going to completely match.
I love the way it puts it. Your conjugal rights.
Mm-hmm. How romantic.
That's just funny. But it's not just about it's not just about physical needs either. That is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to do with emotional, spiritual, all that. I mean, it's such an amazing thing that God created.
It is.
But he does talk about in there. Paul talks about the fact that, hey, you should not go extended periods of time without sex.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is something that bonds you, unites you. And when you don't have that, it can open the door. And obviously we know there's seasons of life where things can change. But for most of our couples who are out there, you're going to deal with this. And so you have to be able to talk through it.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing to help with a wide gap in sex drive is just to rate your sex drives 1 to 10.
Okay.
So maybe you could spend some time doing this later today. We're going to talk about family meeting. This might be part of your discussion on the topic. If you think about sex and desire to have sex 3 times a month, your sex drive would be a 3. If you desire sex 8 times a month, so a couple times a week, your sex drive would be an 8. And this will kind of help you both understand the other. So I would probably rate mine at a 98 right now.
Wow, very impressive.
98 out of 100. But it's a conversation that should be had many times over. Because as we mentioned, your sex drive is going to change all the time. It's going to ebb and flow, up and down, and because your circumstance change. So another idea, and we have a blog post about this, is about scheduling sex. Because depending on where you're at in life, like we have a house full of kids and a dog. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot happening in our house.
Yeah. Yeah. They have friends over all the time. It's just like it's just a lot happening over here.
So sometimes we literally have to schedule it. Like, okay, we know the kids are going to be over here at this time. We've got time. Let's make some time. I'm trying to be
Good job.
very careful.
I'm proud of you.
And that way the spouse that has the lower sex drive can mentally prepare themselves in all those sorts of things. The spouse with the higher sex drive knows that sex is around the corner. And we'll talk about some other things as far as this concerned in one of our other questions that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.